Do you have some good reality movies or books that I could watch or read? Or maybe some...
yes, I do, Paul. There's
good.
one called FaceTiming Your Friend to talk about shows you like. That's one. That's a good one.
I see. That's why I was so bored by that part. Okay.
Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Westworld, Season 3, Episode 5, Genre. Action-packed. The plot moved quite a bit.
Certainly.
It opens on Soraka as a child,
yes,
with his brother witnessing the destruction of Paris.
Yes.
We kind of morph into Soraka in modern day, handling the Brazilian president.
They're modern day.
With the help of Rehoboam. We then, at the ending of this episode, is Dolores confronting the hologram of Soraka in an airplane hangar, and then she and Caleb are getting on a plane to parts unknown. I've got a theory on where they're going.
Good.
But that's kind of encapsulates our episode. Before I launch into a little description, Paul,
yes,
your thoughts on Genre?
Another one I was not quite crazy about. I mean, there are elements in this one again that I liked. Yeah, I mean, it's like, one of those things where it's like when there's a lot of promise, and you don't know a lot, you can feel a lot more positive once you start learning the answers.
Okay.
So we're learning a lot more now.
We are.
And so I can be less happy with what I'm learning.
All right, you're saying as long as there's a great unknown, it was like the backup quarterback who's like, oh, that guy must be awesome.
Yeah.
Then he starts playing, you're like, oh, that's why he's the backup quarterback. Okay, is there something particularly about this episode? Is there like a particular moment or something that threw you off, or what?
A very thing that I consider a very large thing happened, which is once Dolores reveals to the world what Rehoboam, what that means to everyone,
yep,
right?
Yep.
And so that was other big, and I was not impressed with how they revealed, I shouldn't say that, with how we saw the world was dealing with it.
Gotcha.
I was not convinced that everybody should have, everybody just run around like it's crazy. I was not convinced that should be the reaction, that it should happen just like that.
I agree. That was an odd... We'll jump to that, because that's an important aspect of this episode. Basically, there's, in some ways, two parts of this, two stories being told simultaneously. One is the backstory,
yes,
to Soraka, and then intercut is Caleb and Dolores doing their thing. The big reveal is, it feels like the end of a movie or the end of a season, actually. This felt like, if the point of Dolores, and it's not, but if the point was, I want to liberate humanity by giving them the truth, well, she did it. All right. Yes. Credits, and, well, okay, great. That's the end of this. But obviously her point is liberate humanity to cause chaos and then destroy them, I think is the idea. Anyway, but yeah, in that moment, it did feel kind of pat and a little rushed with the idea of like, oh, let's just put the things to their phones and they'll get a little notice from Insight that gives their little background, and it'll just make everyone flip out.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking to myself, like, if I got a message, an unexpected, unasked for message from I guess everybody knows Insight probably as a company.
Yeah.
Let's say it's like Microsoft,
sure,
or something. So if I got a thing from Microsoft and it said, hey, a lot of people call you asshole and you're not well liked, and frankly your social setting is at a 2.3, I'd be like, okay, it's just like one of those Facebook games. Like, what Lord of the Rings character are you?
Well,
he knew I was Samwise.
Well, you should be a little more honest about what they reveal, right? Because really, it's like really you get a message from Microsoft saying, the person that you're married to, we are the one that made that happen, and the job that you have, we're the reason why you have that job and where you are in your life. That's the message you would get from Microsoft.
Well, okay, I actually did do screen grabs on all of the little phone messages that people get.
Sure.
Now, some of them are pretty like, oh boy, if you believed it, you'd be really upset. But like, for instance, there's the one with he's an exec. He's an exec, and whatever, he's got a suit and tie. He's probably reasonably well off. And the thing, he's looking at his, social profile, and it just says,
yes.
Most common term associated with you, asshole, jerk. People think of you as unreliable. You're like, okay. Like, that one in particular is like, okay, okay, weird, but thanks, insight. Block, I don't know, like that one in particular just felt like if that would be the type of thing that people got, I think they should dismiss
they
it.
Got more than that.
Yeah.
Even
especially
that got more than that. That's like a culmination. I think what they're trying to do is show people and the people who are freezing it like you, but show the people that it's coming, like that it's a lot of little bits of information that they're adding up to sum up your life. So,
I got you.
We know the effect, right? That they've planned everybody's life down to the little iota. And so
like, this isn't Candy Crush.
They know that. Yeah, they know everything about you, so they can plan everything about you. So that's what they're telling you.
And one example, I think, of how much information came to each person is in the fact that Ash, Ash and Giggles, the Rico app mercenaries.
Yes.
She's looking up info on her brother.
Yes.
And then there's also a woman that's seeing like that her daughter's going to commit suicide at some point. So what that means is it's showing you not just your profile.
Yes.
But like your, I don't know how extended, but your family.
Yeah.
You could click on brother, mother, daughter, grandma, I don't know, whatever. But it's like, so there's a whole bunch of profiles, I guess, that you're getting access to.
Yeah, presumably you might even get more access to that. Like, here's your mailman. Oh, let's see, check him out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So no reason why any privacy should be respected in this moment.
I'm just wondering about, like, there's got to be at least somebody out there. They're hanging out at a coffee shop. Bloop, bloop, bloop. They're like, oh. They look at their thing, and it's like, it's actually really good news. It's like, hey, your social standing is a 9.8. Highly recommended. Approved for high-level security. Like, oh, check it out, guys. This is pretty cool. Yeah. Why is everyone trying to kill everybody? I don't know. It felt a little clumsy in the way that it was introduced and then resolved. And like, there it is, okay, and that's handled, and I guess now everybody knows. So you can't really put that genie back in the bottle, right?
Probably
it's not like they, as Bernard says, everyone's off their loops.
Right.
He says they're off their loops. Okay, so that means it feels like Rehoboam is screwed. However, there's that in that last conversation between the hologram of Soraka and Dolores, he seems to be saying, "I can fix it." So feel like there's still another card to be played there.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, yeah, that's possible, but we'll see. What
well, I'll jump to that. Here's my thought on actually that conversation. Something I took out of it is where I think is leading to next episode, and maybe is what's the next part of Dolores's plan. I think ultimately we're saying that she's trying to cause so much chaos that then I guess humanity will be easier to take over, perhaps, is the idea. She says something like, "You're all doomed," or something like. She says something very, very ominous to Soraka in that moment, and he's like, "No, humanity, we're flawed." But he says, I actually wrote it down. He says, "We are flawed, but I can change that." She says, "Like you changed your brother? It's time everyone woke up." So she went in, she hacked the Rehoboam files, so she now knows about Soraka. Soraka was deliberately keeping his personal info away from everybody. She now knows that, including what she considers to be, and probably rightfully so, his Achilles heel, his brother.
Right.
I think she is headed to that re-education center because who's the only people left in the world, theoretically, that don't know the truth. Because she sent this thing off to all their cell phones. Anybody that doesn't have a cell phone plan, I guess, is in trouble.
Why would she care if these small group of people know?
Because they're outliers, meaning they're the people that Rehoboam specifically designated, like, these people will take down the system if we don't control them. So I think she's going to go, including the brother, I think she's going to go and say, all right, here are the people that Rehoboam said would be terrible for the system. Let's get them back online. I think that's the idea.
Okay.
And plus, there's a few other reasons why I think they're headed to the re-education center. Bernard is told about it by Connells, who is Dolores, before Connells dies. He's like, here, look at this. This is where they're keeping people. It's a re-education center. And so and then before he sends Bernard off, like, you have to stay alive. It's kind of the implied thing was, you should go to the re-education center. Also, from the trailer for next week, we see that, and we knew this already, but William is at the re-education center.
That's true.
So it's kind of a way that narratively they can all kind of come back together.
An example, so I'm really starting to wonder. One thing that happens, I feel, and it's hard to explain exactly what is bothering me about this, but
sure.
Here, I'm going to try now. So, okay, I don't see what that gets her. I don't see what it gets her to go to this place, and just because Soraka feels like, I've got to keep every person in their place. Now he's got everybody going amok. What the difference these last few people who are crazy do. I'll be interested to see, but I don't have faith that it'll be something that I actually think will be a threat.
I got you. Yeah, it does feel like
when everything's tied down, those people are a threat. But when everybody's running around like crazy maniacs, I don't think they are.
I hear you. No, it does feel like the plan almost happened. She's like, all right, here's my plan. I'm going to. Oh, I did it. Okay, well.
Well,
all right.
But here's the thing.
Grab a sandwich.
I don't see what it gets her.
Yeah, like.
She's, and so I'm not saying that there isn't anything that it gets her.
Got you. There's 3 episodes to figure this out.
Now I'm wondering, what is she getting out of this? One thing that has been up in the air is the extent to which she feels as if they can, the robots can live in peace with the humans.
Right.
And so this certainly isn't good.
We know Soraka thinks that answer is no.
Right.
I mean, he's pretty much said it pretty much straight out. When he's talking to Maeve, he's like,
right.
There's no place for you in this once we've defeated the robots.
Right.
But so okay.
Right.
But
so we don't know what. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm having less faith that I'm going to like the answer.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I think I got a rewatch of this episode. I liked it better on the rewatch.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't rewatch it. I should have.
But I will say this: that I was like, why? What is bothering me about this episode? And I think I pinpointed that it comes down to Liam Jr. Like, I didn't buy the way he was acting.
Yep.
In this moment, like, he is in terrible peril.
Yes, he is.
And he's kind of just wise-assing his way through, and you're like, would you be that way? Yeah. Would you? Huh. You are, like, asking people to shoot you right now is what you're doing. And he does, and they do, and he dies. But, like, I think that was where I was like, this doesn't ring true to me.
And then as he dies, for some reason it's important who he thinks you are. Like, what? Why does Caleb care about what he thinks?
You did it! What do you mean? Did I shoot you? No, I didn't. That was actually Ash. She shot you. I know. Were you blaming me on that? Oh, my cat's gonna walk in front of the screen.
It's like, I think again you have not watched the, or do you even have access to the after thing they do? Like, here's the important things from the show.
I haven't watched the after thing. I do have access to it. I didn't.
You just never watch it.
Yeah.
So they wanted to impress how in that thing they were saying how look at how great an actor that Aaron Paul. Look how great he is. He can act like he's high and on something. And, it's like, okay, why? I guess they're setting it up for him to remember what happened to what mission he was on before that, which I guess has some significance. Which,
yes.
Okay.
The big question coming out of this episode certainly is, who is Caleb? I mean, they're setting that up, and that's a big deal, and we'll talk about that. I had some theories, and then I was like, no, I talked myself out of them. So we're jumping around, but sure, let's do it right now. So Caleb, we have a few big moments here that are very cryptic, and they involve Liam Jr. for the most part. Sure. We have Liam Jr. puts on the glasses that can read people's pasts, and when he looks at Caleb, he gets scared, legitimately afraid of him, and he says, like, you don't know who you are. He said, this is early in the episode, he says, what, you think I killed your friend? Then toward the end, we have this thing where he's like, again, like, you're the worst of the worst. I think he says, you're the worst of them, I think is what he says. And you did it. As he's dying out. Yeah. And so, again, this you don't know who you are, you did it, you're the worst of them. We also hear on the other side of things, when we're hearing Sorak's backstory, that outliers, these people that might take down the system, Rehoboam was trying to steer them into, like, war zones and places that might get them killed off.
Right.
Whereas Sorak was trying to put them in these re-education centers. I guess that was more humane to try to, as he put it, edit them, I think. We get the idea that I don't think it's even a theory. Caleb is an outlier. Caleb's an outlier who was sent to a war zone by Rehoboam, and at some point was also put in a re-education center. We see that shot of him in one of his flashbacks where he's got the glasses on and he's in what looks very much like the re-education center.
Oh, okay. So
he was re-educated and probably had his memory wiped, which is why he's struggling to remember who he is. So that part, I think, is pretty much 100%. It's then, who actually is he? Is he someone that is relevant? There's a theory online that I've seen that I was starting to go with, and I was like, that maybe he's Sorak's brother. I'm like, there's a lot that would have to be retconned in order for that to work.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the case. But
is that the only theory that's out there?
It's not the only theory that's out there. There's of course, there's still the idea that he's a host, that he's the other host. I don't see that either.
Yeah. What? Okay.
There's a theory that maybe he's an outlier that then got his memory wiped and got this re-education, and he was turned into somebody like a black ops for Sorak to be like, go and take out other outliers, perhaps. It's still a little weird, because I think the whole point of the re-education center is supposedly we don't go kill the outliers, we just bring them in and brainwash them so that they don't screw with the system anymore. I think perhaps the you did it, I mean, the Occam's razor version of that is that Liam Jr. is talking about Caleb killing his friend Francis. Right? At the very beginning of the episode, we have that shot. Right. Liam says, you think I killed your friend?
Right.
And then theoretically and narratively at the end, when he's dying, he's like, you did it. So I feel like that's probably safe to say that Caleb is not remembering the fact that, for whatever reason, he ended up killing Francis. But does Liam really care about that? Why would Liam be so like, no, my dying breath, you killed your friend who I didn't know either of you before today.
No, he was that part of the plot dying.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe instead the you did it is more of him looking into the future, because his glasses see everybody's future, right? He's reading Giggle's future, like, you'll be lucky if you die in a ditch. Ash, your brother is gonna be terrible, blah 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 blah. So he can see the future with the glasses. I think he's seeing that Caleb is the outlier that Sorak is afraid of. Sorak has mentioned before, there's an outlier that's going to take out the system. We thought it was Dolores, we thought it was Maeve, but it wasn't. So now we think it's Dolores.
And now we think it's...
I think it's Caleb. I think Caleb is the outlier that's going to, however it happens, take out I think that's where the "you did it" is about.
Right, and it feels like they're spending a lot of time on stuff that was only introduced this season.
Yep.
It doesn't have anything to do with the robots or the synths or whatever they are. It doesn't have anything to do with that crap. I mean,
now we do see
they'll make it connect, but until then, I'm like, what's the point of this?
In the trailer for next week, it does look like they're back in Westworld. Now maybe it's in a simulation of Westworld. I don't know, but there's shots of. I think they're even on horseback at one point. Anyway, so
yeah, but the point isn't. The resolution shouldn't be in Westworld. I mean, the point is that now Dolores wants to do something in the real world. And is it her plan to kill all the humans or most of the humans so that the synths are their rulers? It's like some sort of android Planet of the Apes or something.
I think the answer to that is, I think that's yes. I think she wants to flip the script so that the humans are like the robots, and the robots are like we have free will, and the humans don't. And they run on their loops, and we control them. I think that's her grand revenge.
And so then I guess there'll be some question of whether or not Caleb will betray the humanity to help her make that happen. And presumably Maeve and Bernard will be trying to keep that from happening, I guess.
Right. So at the moment, so Connell's has been blown up. So that's one of the Doloreses is gone.
Right, and that was the other thing that was sort of, clearly you were speculating that perhaps all these other Doloreses might vie for, to command, and clearly not him.
Not him. He was like, I know my place. Yeah. Some of us got to die. This is it. Okay, I'm good. Let me kill Mantis.
But, you had Bernard preparing the audience. Like, okay, you're going to kill yourself, but let me get across to the audience watching the show that somebody could decide to have their own.
He definitely did. He's like, when you live two lives, they start to blur together.
Yeah.
Are you like that? So in other words, Charlotte. But okay, yeah.
And the other person that we still haven't seen.
We haven't seen. The only little hint of a clue we have was early in the episode. Actually, this is interesting because it screws with one of the theories I had last week, which was like maybe Soraka, everything with Soraka is in a simulation. It seems like that's not the case. But because they link the events that are happening, and one of the ways they link them is one of his minions comes in and says, "Hey, we went to whatever Musashi's place, and what we found was it was linked to these various regions, and it mentions like Los Angeles." San Francisco, and then it mentions Berlin. Yeah. And so that's one of the 5 places is Berlin, so that we haven't been to Berlin, we don't know anything what's there, but theoretically there's a Dolores that is hanging out in Berlin for whatever reason. Okay. Anyway, I think we are setting up a situation where one of the Doloreses, probably Charlotte, gets some degree of autonomy from the Dolores personality.
Although, when Dolores in Hale decides that I'm a predator, it doesn't feel like it actually. It feels like I know now, what kind of person I am, and
yeah, I hear that.
That's evil.
Evil. Right. So we talked to who was the villain, and we're still Soraka is definitely a villain.
Yeah.
As much as he's like, I'm trying to save humanity. You're like, okay, he's putting his brother through brainwashing. He killed Liam Sr. in cold blood. Yeah. He's definitely a villain guy. But though his backstory, in a nutshell, is witnessed the destruction of Paris. He and his brother decided that they needed to have they create a god that would control humanity so they wouldn't do stupid stuff.
Sure.
They got an investor, which was Liam Sr., who was basically this big hedge fund guy. Basically just was like, hey, I have a lot of cash, but he also happened to own Insight, which had gathered a bunch of personal information about people before they did some kind of privacy laws. Right. And so they had money and info from this guy, so they took it, created a couple of different scenarios. I like the one where they were now on Solomon, which is the version of Rehoboam before Rehoboam. And he's like, I'm wasting all this money. What do you got me? He's like, well, it is predicting the past. He's like, you got me a computer that predicts the past? But, he doesn't realize, it's actually working. They prove it to him by predicting the stock market.
Yeah.
But not only predicting the stock market, but they're like, where would you like it to end up? Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah. This
stock manipulation. Woohoo!
You can see how the computer is like, I can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And
one thing that was irritating about that was this whole, my brother wanted to kill you. Oh. And then,
he kills...
It's me, actually, that wants to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. That was interesting. It was like, one of the things... I don't know. Yeah. His evidence to Liam Sr. for why he had incarcerated his brother was that, he was thinking about finding ways to kill you. And then, of course, kills him anyway. So you wonder, was he just saying that? I mean, it was true probably, but was he saying that just as a way to be like, this will convince Liam Sr. that I feel like he was
all along saying that, and he's just putting it off on his brother. I feel like it was him that was saying that we should kill him, wasn't it?
Well, what was odd was Liam Sr. said, I've actually been checking Rehoboam myself, and I saw this moment. And I know that you don't kill me in this moment.
Right.
And Soraka's like, there are little bubbles of, how do you put it, little bubbles of agency. So guess what? I got a bubble. Right. That actually made me think.
Hopefully, who knows what they're going to do. I was thinking that if his brother was somehow trying to develop the agency of the synthetics, then maybe that was the way we're like, whoa, you're crazy. I'm going to put you into this asylum and carry out my more evil plan. But
I think maybe if they,
all of you out there becoming impatient and losing faith in the ability of this show to land.
All right,
stick the landing.
Land the plane. One direction it could go is that Dolores frees this brother. I think his name is Shawn Me or something like that. And because he would probably feel, antipathy for his brother. Maybe she uses him to help her defeat the brother. But it's so short a time at this point. You wonder how that. It seems a little late to introduce his brother. That's the thing. I'm like, boy, okay, you're over halfway through this, and you're just introducing what could be a major character. It feels a little odd. Anyway.
They had somebody who represented the corporate world who they put in an asylum, Yep. Unfortunately, it's hard to lose this whole aspect of, feels like either they changed their mind about something or it's something, they're setting up with the whole William going through the test to see if fidelity had been
the fidelity,
of the season.
We don't see
of making him crazy so that you would take him out of the show and introduce a completely new guy who had a plan about the future. It's like, what? Okay. So
maybe in that, because we see in the trailer for next week, he's got the glasses on too, right? He's in the education center being re-educated or attempting to. Maybe the attempt at re-education is making him think he's a robot. I don't know. That the fidelity test would be them trying to fool him into thinking he's a robot.
Yeah, but who cares?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, good point.
Make him a robot. It's unfortunate that apparently there's nothing that can come with that. I feel like they had talked about maybe Bernard knew of a way to make that stuff happen.
Here, what I would like.
Apparently, it's gone.
The ending that I think would be more fitting, perhaps, would be that the mysterious outlier that took out the system that Soraka could never figure out is Soraka. Right? He's certainly an outlier, right? He's the guy that created this giant system of. Anyway, like his brother is an outlier. He identified as. It'd just be interesting if Soraka somehow is like, he didn't have enough introspection to go, oh, I'm the guy that takes us down. Oops.
But what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? What does that have to do with the robots?
It's an ironic twist, Paul. Okay, no. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the robots. So I think the idea is this season is attempting to show that a world where humans have given up control so much to this greater power that they are essentially robots. I think is the idea that's the theme, is my guess, which is very different from seasons 1 and 2 for sure. I mean, they were like, let's try something
very different. I mean, I guess it's possible that part of the end of the series will be Maeve and Bernard realizing that Dolores' attempt to rid the world of the humans is folly, and therefore they should throw their lot in with the humans and come up with some sort of understanding of how the world should proceed after that, I guess.
Should maybe,
But who knows?
Who knows? We did not see Maeve or William at all in this particular episode.
No, we didn't. And,
So, all right, let's talk about the bulk of the episode, which was this essentially a road trip. I mean, we've got Dolores and Liam and Caleb and eventually Giggles and Ash kind of traveling.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Liam has, in an attempt to screw with Caleb, he gives him the genre drug that he got last week, and it was, in fact, we talk about going to the silent age and back. It's it gives you different movie genres that you cycle through, and apparently, according to Giggles, it's always the same ones. So it's not like he goes, oh, there's 5. It's like 5 drips in one, but watch out for that last one.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I guess everybody knows the thing. So some of these were better realized than others, but what I got out of it was, first one, film noir, everything's black and white. Second one is like an action movie. We've got the Ride of the Valkyries, Apocalypse Now reference, and of course we have the missile coming in, which is much like the helicopters coming in attacks.
And then there was a romance one.
There was a romance one, certainly. Yeah, I was just thinking, so like, for instance, for the film noir and for the romance, you could see there was a different visual palette for those, right?
Sure.
Like, for the action one, other than the music, what was different? Like, what is Caleb experiencing that makes that different, other than just, we'll play Ride of the Valkyries? Like, was there... I was missing the immersive quality of what that drug was doing to him in that moment. Anyway,
I'm struggling to care.
Okay, it felt like a cheat for a while,
Why did they need him to have all these emotional states change? Why for all that?
I think, I mean, the only non-cheat reason I could come up with was that the drug took him out of the brainwashing that he's had as an outlier, and he's starting to have memories of what happened to him in the past. I think that's the narrative purpose for what happened.
Okay.
But yeah, it just felt like, okay, so you're just gonna now. I mean, the romance thing. It was fun. It was it was two worlds collide, right? So Dolores is shooting an automatic weapon. There's explosions going off, and he's watching it in slow motion with the theme to a love story playing, and he's kind of making googly eyes at Dolores. Whatever. There was some mild comedic value to that, and it was just a fun little play on themes. But I thought it was a little, maybe overall the genre thing was a little too subtle in some ways. Like, I was like, I don't know that you needed to do this. How much did it add? They play night clubbing Iggy Pop when they go into the subway, and again, there's some neon qualities to it, and he's again, I wasn't sure they got a lot out of that necessarily.
I was sure that they did not get a lot out of it.
You were sure they did not? Okay. Then, as they leave the subway, we hear the music for a version of Space Oddity. We see people running around, they were going to their baser instincts. And Caleb asks Giggles, what genre is this? And he says, it's reality. So in that moment again, I'm like, is Caleb hearing Space Oddity in his head? or is it just the soundtrack to the scene and it is reality? Anyway, I was a little confused as to what Caleb was experiencing in that moment. Because then shortly thereafter he gets, I assume, horror, which is when they play the music to The Shining on the beach. And, they're at the place where he supposedly is going to commit suicide in a few years. And
do you have some good reality movies or books that I could watch or read? Or maybe some...
yes, I do, Paul. There's one called Staying at Home, Working from Home During the Coronavirus. That was one. There's one called FaceTiming Your Friend to Talk About Shows You Like. That's one. That's a good one.
I see. That's why I was so bored by that part. Okay.
I didn't think it was as well executed as maybe it seemed on paper. They were like, oh, what about this drug that we can just play with genres throughout the episode? But then I'm like, okay, well, you didn't really embrace it, I think, as much as you could have. Again, part of the problem was that I just wasn't buying Liam's reactions to everything.
Sure.
And I thought that guy is just, if you put that guy, a guy who's like, I'm a kind of a spoiled rich kid, in that scenario, I think he would just be terrified and, I don't know, not wanting to rock the boat, and like, these people will do it. I don't know. He didn't come across that way at all. And anyway, so I think that kind of took me out of it a little bit. Liam, sorry, guy. I thought it was interesting that it was the public taxi, I don't know, the Uber that showed up that they got in was like bulletproof. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
Really? Okay. Bulletproof cars. That's a thing. In the various flashbacks that we see that Caleb has, there's some unknown entity, some guy in like a camel hair coat.
Okay.
That he's got a thing over his head, and it looks like he's going to get assassinated, perhaps. But then we don't see the actual assassination, but we see that friend, Francis, on the ground. Looks like he's dying again. We see Caleb with the glasses on in the re-education center. There's a quick shot of a woman that I didn't recognize. I'm like, who are you? What? And anyway, I think we're going to see those scenes played out in an entire flashback at some point.
That makes sense.
So I think that's coming. So I do think they're headed to the re-education center. From the trailer, it looks like Dolores and Caleb get caught by Soraka. And seems to be a shot where Maeve is interrogating a version of Dolores. And maybe it's in a simulation.
Yeah.
So maybe, here's the thought. Maybe they get captured by Soraka. Soraka puts Dolores into a simulation to be interrogated by Maeve, because he's still trying to figure out the key to all the Delos data, right? That's kind of one of the main things he still wants to get. Supposedly it's in Dolores' head, although I'm wondering now if it's in Bernard's head.
If it's Soraka putting them into a simulation, I would find that less interesting than something Maeve decided to do and had access to on her own.
All right. But we know Soraka has the technology to do that, right?
Right.
But,
so, that is just, to me, it's sort of like, you got it right here. Why are you putting it into a simulation?
Right. In other words, I think maybe it's
I feel like
maybe it's an attempt to have Maeve.
Or at least I would be more interested in it if Maeve was doing it because she had to get around Soraka.
Okay.
So that's why
I got you.
Find that more interesting rather than, hey, I've got you right here, but why don't I put you into a simulation?
I see what you mean. Like, in other words, a way to talk to Dolores outside of the reference. Okay, that's interesting. I like that. So I think that's
right. It might be like, this is a way to get you to tell the truth and put you into a simulation.
We know that Bernard is incredibly important. There was this line, it was like, you're the most important one of all, or something like that.
Yeah, I think they told us that.
So I'm assuming that means he's got the key to something in his head. Either the Sublime or the secrets from Delos, or both, are probably in Bernard, if I had to guess. Stubbs is back. So yeah. Anyway, we'll be back.
Likely that it's the Sublime in any way, or no, not the secrets. Probably not the secrets that were sent off Westworld because they had to clear out Dolores' father's head in order to make that happen. So.
Right, there was that giant packet of information.
Yeah, so it's probably not that.
You don't think it's that? I think it might be that, actually, but maybe I'm wrong.
Because does not seem like he's like stripped down to his core.
Right, in order to fit the info. Yeah. You're right. It felt like it was so much information that he couldn't handle it. But maybe Bernard can? I don't know. Okay. Yep, you're right. So yes, we'll be back talking about episode 6. And we're about to actually record a quick series of a little preview for the Devs finale, which is coming tomorrow night.
I've heard saying that someone saying on the Twitter there that its view of an all-powerful company controlling all our actions is being handled better than Westworld.
It is a very similar theme. Yeah. So we'll be talking about that too. Anyway, thanks everybody, and we'll be back talking about episode 6. Bye now.
Bye.